Hi guys, Danny here, and I am so excited. Of course, we are counting down to Halloween, but as I've told you, we are going to be talking about the Evil Dead franchise. And I got really inspired because I am a Deadite. If you don't know what that term means, that is what the Evil Dead fans are called. If you're a newbie, welcome. How you doing? If you're an OG, what's up? Nice to be in the family. So, these are some of my favorite films, and just reading this comic, it was so, I want to say, loyal to the source material. It really inspired me to really want to, dig deep and kind of share the love of the Evil Dead world, of this wonderful franchise for those maybe who are new to it, and those who aren't. I know you love talking about this subject, so we're going to be exploring all things Ash, Necronomicon, so on and so forth, and yes, maybe even a little Scooby Doo. I'm just joking. There'll be no Scooby Doo, but so let's just dive in. First off, I want to say that I want to quote a fan in a documentary that I looked at on Amazon Prime called The Deadites, about the Evil Dead fans. And this particular fan was saying how, your perception of the franchise might be colored by when you came in, like what was the first film that you saw. For me, that was The Evil Dead. Um, I'll let you know when we get to my favorite. But yeah, so I think that's a pretty accurate statement because these films are all dramatically different. But it's crazy because they all kind of tie together and coincide. So it could be confusing depending on when you came in along on the ride. So let's start off. What is The Evil Dead? Well, the first film, two guys, Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell, got together along with some of their friends, two young guys from Michigan, and decided to make a movie. They wanted to make something that would be played in the drive-ins. Basically, it was like their jump off. They were fans of horror, but it was their jump off. And just when you look at, they made this movie on a budget of $350,000. They literally knocked on doors like dentists, doctors, family, friends to get the money for this film. So when you're looking at it, I want you, if you're a newbie and you're just now looking at The Evil Dead and you're thinking, wow, you're comparing it to the CGI of today and what you saw in Saw X. No, you have to look at it. You have to take that hat off and just look at it from a different lens. Look at it like, here's some guys, like young college age guys who just, with their own puspa, decided to make a film and worked their butts off to do it. And just the making, even the conditions that they had to endure on this movie and everything they had to go through, was just crazy. It's almost like a movie within a movie, just with the making of it. So you have to look at it from those eyes. It's quite amazing. And it's even more amazing when you look at Sam Raimi, the director, and you look at some of his later films, like, the Spider-Man trilogy, the Tobey Maguire ones. Yes, he's that Sam Raimi. Doctor Strange 2, Drag Me to Hell. If you look at some of these films, Dark Man, you can see in this, his first movie, hallmarks, his hand, his handprint that you'll later see. So, okay, so back to The Evil Dead. So we have five young people. They decide to go on vacation to a little cabin in the woods. Um, Bruce Campbell plays Ash. So we have Ash, his girlfriend Linda, his sister Cheryl, his friend Scott, and his girlfriend. And from the very beginning, things kind of go a little awry. Even on their way there, Scott's driving. He goes to make a turn and he loses control of the steering wheel. He almost runs into a truck. So, right there, we're seeing a little bit of the supernatural. We also get that shh. This is the stalker cam coming along through. And Ash is like, what's going on? You can't drive, blah, blah, blah. And so that happens. They could go along this creepy bridge. I mean, guys, this bridge is super creepy. It is screaming, basically, don't go, don't go. They make it to the cabin. They get there and there's this creepy swing that's just swinging by itself. It's so creepy. and it stops when Scott puts his key in the door. They get in the house and they find the Necronomicon, which is a book that contains these funerary incantations. It can summon demons and all this stuff. Of course, they don't know all this, but Scott brings it up and begins to read from it. Of course he does, right? Cheryl's like, no, what are you doing? Stop doing that. But does he listen? No, he doesn't listen. You know he doesn't listen. She freaks out. And Ash goes, she kind of runs out in the woods, whatever, and Ash goes to find her, calm her down, and he decides, I'm going to take my sister, I'm going to get my sister out of here, right? There's only one problem. He goes to do that and the bridge is out, which is really crazy because he just went over the bridge and now it's just completely like discombobulated. So they go back and I want to say, before I go any further, I'm going to try to not do too many spoilers. If you've never seen these films, I want to leave a little bit left for those who haven't. For those who have, please, we can communicate and talk about it. But one of my favorite scenes that we'll see later on in the franchise is the card playing scene where the two girls are playing spades and Cheryl starts reading the cards. She can't see them, but she's reading the cards. And we see a similar scene in this year's Evil Dead Rise. And it's really freaky. And of course it freaks them out because they're looking at her. She's calling the cards out and they know she can't see them, right? And everybody kind of freaks out. She stabs Linda with a pencil. They throw her in the fruit cellar. Now, and we'll see this fruit cellar also in later films, right? And then we get the prerequisite freak out scene where everybody's freaking out, trying to figure out what to do. And of course, things go completely awry at this point with people just getting possessed left and right. For those of you who are familiar with Ash, if you haven't seen this one, he's not quite, that Ash. He's a little bit more subdued and not quite, I don't want to say not quite as confident, but a little bit more quiet, or it could be as far as Bruce Campbell, where he was with the character and getting into it. But I like that because I like the progression of Ash's character because it just makes sense, And I also, the way they shot this, it, like I said, is amazing with the camera, all the tricks and all the special effects and everything that they did with the little, when you think that they had $350,000 and they made this movie, it's crazy. Of course, our boy Ash, he makes it to the end. No comment on everybody else. And they think they kind of got it fixed, that pesky Necronomicon problem. But it doesn't quite turn out that way because, of course, there is a part 2. I thought this was a great introduction. I loved it. Back then, there weren't any internet leaks. We didn't have what we have today. So when you went to go to see a movie, you really didn't know that much about it. You knew from the trailer. There might be a teensy bit of word of mouth, but it wasn't like now. So it was great to sit down and just see this crazy movie unfold right before your eyes, with all these improbable things occurring. And they just make it seem so normal. Now, the next one, I think, as far as Ash goes, the 3 that Bruce Campbell principally starred in, is my favorite, and that's Evil Dead 2. I think in this one, Ash really, really, like, if it was Fast and the Furious, he put his feet on the NOS. Like, the NOS was activated. Now, this is a sequel, but kind of a requel. They were kind of like, once again, Sam Raimi's ahead of his time, because they retell the story of the first one, but it's totally different. It's a different girl, different Linda. It's still, he's going up there with Linda, but there's no friends. There's no mention of Scott. There's no mention of Cheryl. It's just him and Linda, and they're going up to this cabin for this romantic getaway. She's dancing. He gives her a beautiful necklace. which that little Easter egg comes up to play also in the Evil Dead, the 2013 one, where the characters exchange, the brother and sisters exchange necklaces, but well, the brother gives the sister a necklace, but we'll get to that. But yeah, he gives her a necklace and he's like, yeah, you want to have a little champagne, baby? So he goes to get the champagne because they're having this romantic getaway. And he's like, oh, there's a recording here. And she's like, oh, yeah, play it, see what's on it. And it's like, okay. So he starts playing it, and it's a professor, and he's talking about how he went on this dig, and he found this book in his castle with his daughter and another colleague and his wife, Henrietta, and how it awakened a demon and all this. And he's listening to all this, and as he's listening to it, and the words start being recited, he hears this noise. And he goes, he winds up dropping a bottle of champagne because he sees Linda's gone. And he's like, where's Linda, right? And Linda shows back up, but she's not Linda. She's completely demoned out, right? And this is so crazy because he winds up killing her. He buries her. All this happens like pretty much in the first 10 minutes of this movie. This is it's so crazy. And they also went over the same creepy like bridge too, so we still get the creepy bridge shot. But it's so crazy because you're sitting here looking at this, and Bruce Campbell's such a great actor because he makes it seem like this is a normal thing. Like the suspension of disbelief, they were on point with this. Like you never think, well, gee, his girlfriend just went completely bonkers. She's got these crazy looking demon zombie eyes. He just killed her. He buried her. And it's like, it's like, I gotta get a grip. And it's like, he says it in such a deadpan way. It makes it seem so, this crazy, bizarre situation, seem like this is the most normal thing in the world. Like, this is what, you never think, okay, well, why doesn't he, try to leave or try to, call or do something like, you don't think anything. It just seems like this is just a normal progression, normal stuff. So he turns briefly into a demon as well. Meanwhile, the daughter of the professor comes back and with her colleague, and they come back to the house. The bridge is out, so they get these two, I think it's Billy Joe and her man, this guy, to help, get them through, I think it's like a little trail, so they can get to it. And when they get there, they see Ash, and he's like laying on the ground. There's blood, and she's like, where's her parents? And they immediately assume that he killed her. He killed the parents, right? So they throw him down there with Henrietta, which they find out later, the daughter, that she's down there because they listen to the rest of the recordings. But and these characters are like, they're coming in and you immediately don't like them. It's like they're very adversarial. This, Billy Joe, she's very kind of like I don't know how to describe her. Just kind of not a nice girl, So we really don't like them, and they're kind of troublemakers, and you can tell. And immediately, like, there's this really funny scene where when they're freaking out and they're holding hands, and she's like telling her boyfriend, you're holding my hand too tight, and he's like, I'm not holding your hand, honey. And it's just really crazy. I also have to mention about this film, and like I said, we're going to be going back and forth a lot, that Stephen King was very responsible for getting this out. He really loved the first Evil Dead, so they had more money. I think they had 8 million, but they wound up going over. I think Bruce Campbell said like maybe 11 or something like that, 11 or 13. So they got more money, they had more support, and you see it. And like I said, you also see, and this is my favorite one, you also see a more comfortable Ash. You know, this is where he really gets into himself. He gets the demon possessed hand in this, and he winds up having to cut off his hand. And I have to say that Jigsaw victims, you need to take note, because this guy had the fastest recovery of somebody who severed a body part that I've ever seen. Like, he literally just, it's like he just bounces back, you know, like just by cutting off his hand. And this also is where we get when they have to go down and get the pages of the Necronomicon, because Billy Joe's boyfriend winds up throwing them down there because he gets upset when this time she's the one who freaks out and runs off instead of Cheryl, and she winds up getting taken, and he gets upset, and he throws the extra pages that, you know, they had down the stairs in the cellar with her, and he gets got to, but they have to go back down there and get it. So we get this awesome scene where they go in the shed, they get the chainsaw, he makes a contraption, you know, and attaches it to his hand. And if you're thinking it kind of sounds like Walking Dead, well, Greg Nicotero worked on this film, so there's that. Also, for you eagle-eyed people, when Ash goes into the shed, you will see a guy who wears a sweater and he stalks your dreams. You will see his hand. One of the special effects guys was working on Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors. So that was a little Easter egg put in this particular film as well. You actually see Freddy's glove when he enters the shed, but you gotta look quick. It's not like really, really long and lingering shot. But I love this scene, and this is where he looks in the camera and he says the iconic groovy, you know, and he has such great lines in this film. And like I said, he just whatever happens, whatever's thrown at him, he just catches it, man. He just catches it. And so we get to see all of the same good stuff, but a little bit more. Like I said, he gets a lot more comfortable in this film, and you see it. You can really, really tell the difference in this film as to where he's at. I also think it might be an Easter egg with them saying they put the mom in the fruit cellar, because there was another mom that was in a fruit cellar as well in a little film called Psycho. So, and Sam Raimi is a cinephile, so there were a lot of little things in this movie that reminded you of other movies. Also, at one point, the professor, when he talks to his daughter to let her know that the pages that she brought back, if she recites them, would help help get rid of the demons. It's kind of like a ghostly face thing that kind of reminded me of Roger Corman's, The House on Haunted Hill, that type of thing. So there were a lot of little things in here that remind you of other movies. But this, like I said, this is my favorite because we got the horror, but we also got the comedy, and we got Ash just being cool. You could tell there was heat between him and the professor's daughter. It didn't, quite get the way you might have wanted it to see it flower, but it was there. If I'm looking away, I made a lot of notes because there was a lot to go over here, So, Evil Dead 2. This was my favorite. Like I said, I love this one. The next one was Army of Darkness. And Army of Darkness, again, we're getting the story retold one more time. It's still Linda, but this time, it's not that Linda from Evil Dead 2 or the first Evil Dead. It's Bridget Fonda in a surprise cameo. Yes. So they retell the story, and it's the same story, Oh my gosh. I'm just all over the place because these movies kind of run together for me. So much. But yeah. With this one, we get a lot more comedy because he winds up going back in time At and it's kind of like two adventures in one. You know, at the end of the last film, we see him when he kind of exercises the demons with the words. He and his vehicle get thrown in this time loop I think about 1300 AD, and he kills a deadite, and they kind of like worship him, and it ends with him saying no, no, no. Well, in this one, they kind of pick off from there, but he's a slave. He gets, they think he is affiliated with this Henry the Red, and basically the enemies of Henry the Red, they think that he's with them, so they're going to kill him. They're going to kill Henry. They wind up not doing that because they throw Ash in his pit, and of course he still has his trusty Remington, and he uses it, and he kills the monster down there, and he winds up, saving himself and saving Henry the Red. And they asked him to get this book because there's an evil in their land. Of course, it's the Deadites, and the book is a Necronomicon. And he's like, "Oh man, not another book!" And he goes and he has to find the book, but they tell him he has to say these words and don't forget to say the right words. And there's 3 books, and it's a hilarious seeing him getting these books. And that's another thing too. Sam Raimi really was a fan of Three Stooges. So like in the second film, we got to see, the house basically coming alive, and Ash freaking out with that, like with the moose head, and all that. And this one, we get the mini Ashes attacking him. So there's a lot of slapstick comedy in here too as well. But anyway, he forgets to say the right words, and come to find out, by him forgetting the words, he also unleashed, his evil side and the demons. So now they've got to fight these demons. And I won't like tell the whole battle scene for those who didn't see it. It's awesome. There's some awesome like scenes in this movie as far as that goes. There is another love interest, Sheila, that he meets in this time, and he has heat with her because he's Ash. He kills deadites, slays the chicks, with his good looks, and he's just out here, kicking butt and taking names. So she turns evil too, and there's this big battle, and there were 2 endings to this film. And that's a key thing. There were 2 endings. There's an ending that we see, and then there's the director's cut. I don't want to tell that part. I will say that the comic that we'll be reviewing, Army of Darkness Forever, goes along with the director's cut. So there you go. But this was not, I really liked this one, but it was not my favorite. I just like the second one better. I don't know if it was the time travel thing. I mean, I appreciate it, but as far as like, is it my favorite? Not quite. Not quite. But I did like, but I did love, like, I know some people might think it's confusing that they retell the story differently each time, but I actually think that it was worth it. I actually think that it worked for them. That the way Sam Raimi, the way the story goes, you don't really question that. You don't really, I mean, what movie have you ever seen where they made 3 movies and they literally told the story over again and kind of tweaked it with a different person? Like you didn't see Empire Strikes Back with a different Luke. Luke was still Mark Hamill. He's been Mark Hamill, so it would be weird if they all of a sudden came out with a different one. If Empire, it was like somebody different, you'd be like, well, who is this guy? But somehow you just go along for the ride. And it just works. And I think it's just the endearing quality of this story and these characters that it's hard to explain, how you can bottle magic. Now, the later ones, Evil Dead 2013, now this one is a little bit different. In this one we have two siblings, and these two siblings, Mia and David, are going. They go to this cabin, and it is, I think, Scott. No, not Scott. I am trying to remember his name. Eric. Eric and Olivia, and David's girlfriend. And they're there. We still same scenario. They're still from Michigan. They're still going to a cabin, but this time they're going there because Mia has a drug problem, and they want her to detox, and she's supposed to detox there. And they make this agreement unknowingly to her that they are not going to take her back if she wants to, because she OD'd. But we find that out later. What was interesting about this film is that, unlike Ash and his sister, we feel all this tension between these two because, their mother passed. We find out Mia was kind of left holding the bag. She feels David wasn't there, so there's heat there. David is moved away to Chicago, and the friends feel Eric, he feels a little abandoned. Olivia seems to have a crush on him, so that causes heat between her and the girlfriend. And so there's all this heat, all this drama before anything even happens. But Mia immediately, we still get the creepy cabin. Another fun Easter egg in this one is that when David walks up to Mia to find her, and she's like in the back of the cabin, she is sitting on Ash's car. I was like, this is so sweet. She's literally sitting on his car. So it's got to makes me believe that this film was set in the same universe. Got to. So she's sitting on the car, just chilling. They start having this conversation, and he gives her a necklace, just like as we mentioned before, Ash gave Linda. So another nod to the original film, which was kind of cool. There's a swing. It's not swinging creepily, but there is a swing there, and it's still a creepy cabin. So, but these characters from the jump, this movie is dramatically different. Like, if you come into this one thinking it's going to be like the ones with Ash, no, you're going to be in for a big surprise, because it is totally different. I liked it, but and it made, I think the one that made the most was this latest, The Evil Dead Rise 2023 made the most, I think, of the franchise. But yes, back to this one. She's still wearing she's wearing the MSU sweatshirt, just like Linda. Like I said, the cabin is still creepy. And we've got all this heat going on, and this forced situation. And she makes this vow to never do drugs again. She throws her drugs down the well, and everything's going okay for a minute. And then she starts to freak out, and she wants to go home, and they tell her, no, we're not taking you. So she freaks out, grabs the keys, runs out into the woods, and David goes after her. And while she's in the woods, there's a scene where basically the tree branches attack her. And we see this in the first one as well. And it was controversial then. Not so much in 2013. I don't think much was said about it, but because things were a little bit different. But it's kind of disconcerting. And so she's basically getting attacked by the tree branches. And David finds her. She sees like a version of herself, like a deadite version, zombie of herself. And so, he brings her back in. She winds up basically going in the shower and, burning herself, right? And so she cuts his hot water on. David finds her. And then here we have a scene where he needs to take her to the hospital. So he's got to, they leave, and the bridge is out. and he's freaking. Everybody's freaking out because she's hurt, and once again, it's they go down in the basement because they finally figure out the smell. I think it was the dog sniffing at the cellar. They see all this creepy stuff. Eric sees the book. He brings it back up. And of course, he's a teacher. He's intelligent. He's got all this stuff going for him. But what does he do? He decides he's going to read too. He's very smart, but not smart enough to think maybe I shouldn't read from the strange book with all these dead animals and dead things and this creepy stuff going on, and everybody's freaking out. But what does he do? He reads from the book. And what happens? Well, all hell breaks loose. That's what happens. And much like in the first one, people start getting possessed. A hand does get cut off. It's not Mia's hand. But again, like I said, I don't want to do too many spoilers for all these movies. But yeah, things start getting really fast paced at this point. As far as like Olivia winds up attacking Eric. David's girlfriend freaks out. And I have to say in this one, you kind of think setting it up that David is going to be the survivor or the one, especially with Ash being our focal character. But here Jane Levy, who, if you saw Castle Rock, was excellent as Jackie Torrance, who was Jack Torrance from The Shining's niece. She is great. Her performance was like magnifique. I mean, I loved it. She's so great at just portraying strength and evil and cunning. She can go back and forth crazy, just whatever the role calls for. And she had to do it all here. It was like I said, this film was very different from the other three because it's a lot darker and a lot more faster paced. And like I said, it's a little bit more, I don't know if humanity is the right word, but there's a lot more tension because like I said, there was a lot of heat between these people. So we're already stressed out before the supernatural stuff happens. And I did like that because then you feel compressed because you're in this tight spot, you're in this cabin. It's not very big. You really get to see the run of the whole place. So you're just, tight, almost claustrophobic. And anybody who's been in a situation like that, where there's a lot of stuff going on and you're already uncomfortable and you're in this small space, that already creates an ominous feeling. And I really, really, really like that about this movie. And I love the nods and the Easter eggs. And the guy who did this film, he also directed Don't Breathe. So if you like that, you can see that in this one. So there's so much more that we're going to talk about. I'll be back tomorrow. We're going to be talking about the Evil Dead Rise, and we're going to be tying that into the comic. So I just, I hope that you get a chance to look at one of these movies or pick up the comic, and I will be talking to you soon. Until then, stay spooky.